Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Coaching Chats. I'm your host, Rukhshana Alieva. Today, I'm joined by another very special guest, Jennifer Bentley. In this episode, we will explore the world of Pilates. We will break down what Pilates is and why it may be beneficial for you. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you on my
I'm
show. And
excited to be here.
I have wanted to do this episode for such a long time. So it's great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Jen. I am a reformer and a mat Pilates instructor. So I have been working in the world of fitness since 2010. I started as a personal trainer originally. And then I kind of transitioned into Pilates from there. And I have been teaching mat since 2015, so coming up to 10 years, and I've been teaching Reformer for 7 years. I have opened my own Reformer studio last year in Hertfordshire, and yeah, I'm super fortunate. I'm very, very busy. Lots of my classes get booked up, and I have amazing clients, and I absolutely love it. It's a lot of hard work, but yeah, it's really worth it. It's really rewarding.
Thank you. And so you said that you started as a PT, right, personal trainer in the
Yeah.
fitness industry. But what led you actually to transition into Pilates?
I think at the time I I wanted more of a niche. I think that being a PT is quite broad because there's so many different types of PT out there. To just be a personal trainer, it just felt too broad to me. Um, and I really just wanted that niche and that specialism. Um, if you look around, if you research getting a PT, as I said, there's so many different types of PTs out there depending on their skills. And I was kind of at the time I was kind of experimenting, bringing different things into my sessions, and then I found Pilates. I just kind of I heard the name and I was like, what is that? And I the gym that I was going to at the time had mat classes on. At the time, I didn't even know what a reformer was. I'd never seen one before. It wasn't really something that was popular like it is now. So I started initially with mat. I started going to mat classes, and I remember at the time I really didn't get it. It didn't quite click for me, but I persevered because I guess I kind of felt like I want to get this. I want to understand it, and then I think once I did, and once I started to feel and see the benefits in my own body, that's when I just thought, no, I didn't look back, and I thought, no, this is for me. And it just naturally progressed into Pilates, became what I was doing full time then, and the PT kind of dropped off a bit, and yeah, I just focused on my Pilates, and then from there, obviously that was going really well. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do my reformer training. I did that, and again, absolutely love it. And I love that I have the two now, that I can kind of mix together. It's fun.
Oh wow! So you fell in love with Pilates when you took someone else's class,
Yeah,
right? Whilst
yeah.
being a PT, and then you
Mm.
decided, well, this is something I want to pursue. Well, you just probably didn't know, but then it just gradually progressed with that
Yeah,
area. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I felt like it was kind of meant to be because like I say, when I went to the first Pilates class I ever went to, I really didn't get it, but there was something within me that was like, no, keep going, keep at it, and it is going to click. um so I kind of almost feel like I was meant to do that. There was something telling me to do that. And I think that can be the case actually for a lot a lot of people who are new to Pilates, it can be quite, because it's very different. It's very different to anything else, and it can be quite strange at first because it's all about control, it's all about precision. You know, often we're really, really slowing our movement down. It's not something that we're always used to. You know, a lot of what fitness is about is, you know, lifting really heavy weights and everything being quite high impact, and or moving really fast. And Pilates is like the opposite to that. So it can feel quite alien to some people when they first start.
No, that's so true. It's interesting you pointed out on the fitness industry that, or maybe people who do these traditional HIIT classes or weightlifting, yeah, sometimes they're not really aware of their body and how they're sometimes, even I'm guilty of that myself. Like I go to the gym, I can be so I don't know, not like so yeah, not controlled with my movements. Yeah, so that's an interesting point you made. Yeah, that's so true. And actually, let's speak about actually Pilates. For people maybe who are not familiar, could you explain what Pilates is? Yeah.
Yeah, so Pilates is an exercise modality. It was started originally by a man called Joseph Pilates. However, it wasn't called Pilates right in the beginning. I always tell people this because I think that this is key to understanding what Pilates is. It was actually called Contrology, which gives you a clue as to what it's all about. So there's 6 principles that underlie what Pilates actually is. So you've got control being number one. I would say control is the most
Control.
important principle.
I'm going to write it down.
That's all right. You've got the
Yeah.
breath.
Yeah.
The breath. Joseph Pilates wrote a book called Return to Life, Contrology. And in the book, he talks about breath being the first act of life and the last. And that's how important the breath is. So the breath is something that is very much, you know, it's a core principle as well. You've got centering, which basically means connecting to your center. We really call it our core. Core is a word that you hear a lot in the fitness industry. You can think of centering as another sort of name for core, really. Basically means the same thing. You've got flow. Flow refers to the sequencing of the exercises. So as a teacher of Pilates, you're always aiming to flow exercises together so that it feels very natural. Your other one is precision. Precision, I'd say, very closely linked to control. You can't have control without precision. You can't have precision without control. So that is just the movements being precise how you want them to be. Concentration is the last one. So obviously when you're trying to move with control and precision, and you're trying to breathe through all of this as well, at the same time you need concentration or you need focus to be able to do those things. So that is what Pilates is in a nutshell. It's a modality that utilizes all of those principles. Yeah, that's
Oh
what it is in
wow.
a nutshell.
Oh, it's so interesting. It's just for my as well understanding. There are so many principles involved, and as you said, it's so important when even you do something else, like breath. I think it's so important. And actually, for our listeners who don't, they probably definitely don't know, I took Jennifer's classes, I don't know, a few years ago. So this is actually how we met
Yeah.
in central London.
Mm.
And I really, really enjoyed taking classes with Jennifer. And yeah, I remember all these benefits, like because we did PT session as well. And I remember you did. Yeah, I think when you work on one-to-one basis, you're definitely a bit more aware
Mm.
what Pilates was all about. Well, obviously you didn't explain it, but I think I was more aware of the breath, breathing, as you said, control, definitely control, that flow when you move. So yeah, it's so important. But yeah, just I don't know, just remember that our sessions together. And
Yeah, I definitely agree with a one-to-one. I think especially if you're new, if you're new to Pilates, a one-to-one can be really helpful at first, because sometimes I think when you're coming into a class environment, especially if it's a big class, we can get a little bit lost sometimes. So if you really, really want to get your head around it and get the benefits, I do recommend booking a one-to-one if you can, at least initially. I do think that helps. I definitely agree.
yeah, definitely helps. Yeah, because when you, as you said, I mean, that was my experience when I I did it for the first time. I was not lost, but first of all, it's a carriage, obviously, because you taught the Reformer and all these springs, right? I remember I was so confused, and you
Yeah.
have to keep up with a pace of the class
It
because
can be quite overwhelming, I think.
yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely, I would definitely say that one-to-one sessions will be very beneficial. And so, yeah, we mentioned that six principles of Pilates. I'm wondering why Pilates? What are the benefits of Pilates?
So for me, when I think about the benefits, I can kind of separate them into the physical benefits and then more of like the mind benefits that you get. So starting with the physical, through learning and teaching our body to move with more control and precision, we're going to make ourselves much less injury prone. So with Pilates, because it's a low impact form of exercise, we're not putting loads of pressure through the joints, and we tend to really gradually load the body as throughout your journey with Pilates, if that makes sense. So you would obviously start with more beginner level, and then as you get stronger, we gradually load the body. We get stronger in that way. So because of that gradual progression, combined with the way that we're moving with precision and control, we're building the foundation of our body. So Pilates is all about the smaller, the deeper, the more stabilize the muscles, rather than the bigger muscles that tend to be a lot stronger. We're building those smaller, deeper ones that are really the foundation, that are literally holding our joints together and giving us so much support. So when it comes to doing things in day-to-day life, or maybe if you play a sport, you've got that foundation of strength underlying the bigger muscles that you're working when you're doing your other things. If I hope this is making sense.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, yeah.
definitely less injury prone, better posture. You're building your awareness really of where your body is in space, if that makes sense. It might be something that you've never really thought of before. As a newbie to Pilates, we don't tend to really think about, oh, how am I sitting? Are my shoulders drawn back? You know, am I slouching? We don't tend to think of that so much. And often through regular Pilates practice, we really build that awareness, because in Pilates we talk so much about alignment, and position, how and where we're positioning our bodies. So you tend to, after a period, you tend to really pick up on that, and you tend to build your own awareness of that. So you definitely start to improve your posture. Sports performance, I kind of touched on that when I was talking about being less injury prone, because we're building that foundation of strength. Those larger muscles are then kind of free to do that work that they need to do when you're playing your sport. So definitely improves sport performance and just less pain and less restriction in your body, because when we're strengthening with Pilates, as I said, we're strengthening our foundation. So all those joints are feeling a lot more supported. We're stretching as well a lot of the time in Pilates. So, we're relieving tension from the body at the same time. So definitely, anyone with sort of back pain, shoulder niggles, hip pain, most people with quite quickly, with sort of generalized aches and pains, they're going to see and feel an improvement. Definitely. Okay, and then you've got the mental benefits or the mind benefits. So I kind of touched on this when I spoke about awareness of where our body is in space. We're basically building a better mind-body connection, which is something that you don't get with many exercise modalities, but a few, I believe, because we've slowed everything down and we're really kind of focused on our movement, on our breath, making sure we're in control, making sure we've got that precision. We have to go within, we have to connect with our bodies. We cannot be thinking outside of ourselves. So it really pulls you into the present moment. And this is what often you'll hear people say after they do a Pilates class, they're like, wow, where did the time go? Because they're not sitting there thinking about what they're going to have for dinner or what they've got to do that day or how many emails they've got to answer. They are fully focused on their body. And I think just the slowing down as well of the movement, focusing on the breath, actually breathing properly. Most of us don't breathe properly nowadays. We rush around a lot, we're trying to get things done, get through our to-do lists. And Pilates is really forcing you really to slow down, go within, be in the present, breathe. And I think those are probably my favorite things about Pilates. And I think they have a wide reaching impact on the rest of your life, other areas of your life, not just your fitness level,
Mm-hmm. Wow, so many benefits, just incredible, from like benefits for your physical body as well as your mind. So as you said, that mind-body connection, which is so important. And I think one of the main takeaways from what you've said as well, how it's low impact for the body, because I remember I had a few sessions with physiotherapist doctor. I think it was for my shoulders. I don't remember what was that. And she recommended me actually doing Pilates, not yoga, because she told me that yoga might be a bit hard, with downward dog, the position. So she said that she actually recommended me doing Pilates, Reformer Pilates.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was really, really good. So and you mentioned as well the mind, the breathing, the being present in the moment, right? That mindfulness aspect. Yeah, it's just incredible. And I think, I don't know if you mentioned a little bit of, I don't know, maybe you didn't mention. I know there are different types of Pilates, contemporary, and classical. What's the difference between them?
Yeah, I don't think I have touched on this yet. So
Yeah, sorry.
Classical Pilates can be thought of as literally what Joseph Pilates taught. So it's quite rigid in its structure as well as the exercises itself. So if we take mat Pilates, for example, classical mat Pilates is based around 34 exercises, and they are taught in a specific order. So there is a level of rigidity to classical Pilates that is not so present in contemporary Pilates. Contemporary Pilates, you can think of it as taking the principles of Pilates that I spoke about earlier, but in terms of the movement, it's more about creating variations of the classical exercises. Both have benefits. Contemporary also, I would say, tends to be a little bit more dynamic. And I think that's just mainly because we have less rigidity than we do with classical Pilates. I think from the point of view of both a teacher and a participant, I think contemporary Pilates is, this might be a bit controversial to say, but perhaps slightly more enjoyable, because we don't have that rigidity. I mean, if you can imagine going to a Pilates class and doing the same thing in the same order every single week or day, or however often you're going, I think that can get a little bit dull after some time. And I think obviously with contemporary Pilates, we've just got more room to build on the exercises and play with them. And, you know, also I think with classical Pilates, some of the exercises really are quite tough. I remember when I first started teaching, it kind of not shocked me, because I was used to teaching people movement. But I realized that actually, to teach these 34 classical exercises as they are in the order that they are in and not deviate from them at all was not always going to benefit everybody, because not everyone is coming to Pilates with the same level of strength and control, etc. You know, everybody is different. We all have different bodies, and yeah, it's because of that rigidity, it's harder to make classical Pilates benefit absolutely everyone, I would say. Whereas with contemporary, we've got more scope to do that. We're more able to create a flow of exercises that are going to benefit more people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could imagine, as you said, if there are like this 34 they're not principles, I don't know, sequence, right? That you have
34
to exercises, yeah.
And they're all sort of sequence in one particular order. So if you imagine a room full of all different people with all their different maybe injuries or issues or different types of posture, different level of strength, different level of flexibility, and I'm teaching the exact same thing to all those people every week in the same order, I am less able to benefit everyone.
Yeah, that's true. So it's probably it's great that Pilates has, you know, evolved. So now
it has evolved, definitely. Yeah. And if really Joseph Pilates designed those exercises for, he taught dancers, ballet dancers and gymnasts. That's a very different population to, you know, your average person. Very different type of person. You know, they have an elite level of strength and flexibility that most people don't have. So therefore, in my view, it needs to be adapted to suit your average person. I think the only slight issue that can kind of sometimes come up with contemporary Pilates is there's often a lot of debates about this online, whether something is Pilates or not. I think the lines can get a bit blurred, because obviously where you have that freedom to play around with the exercises and create variations, sometimes it can go a bit wild. And I think that Pilates purists, as they're known, would say, you know, anything that's not the 34 exercises, that's not Pilates. That's their view. Whereas I'm more sort of, myself as a teacher, I'm more sort of the view that we need contemporary Pilates. However, to me, an exercise, I would only call an exercise Pilates if those principles are there that I spoke about. So control, breath, centering, flow, precision, concentration. If those principles are there, for me, it is Pilates. It may not be what Joseph Pilates taught, but it is Pilates because those principles are there. And in my personal view, I believe that if Joseph Pilates were around now, he would agree, because he himself was an innovator. You know, he created this method at a time when, you know, there was nothing like it around. And yeah, I believe that he would have wanted his method to progress and evolve, like you say. So for me, that's my view. That's my personal view as a teacher. But there are other teachers who would say, no, it's not Pilates unless it's one of the classical exercises. So yeah, you do get a lot of debate about this online.
Oh, so interesting. So it's quite a polarized space.
Yeah.
I mean, some people, like, there is
Yeah.
that camps. Or are you classical? Are you for classical Pilates, or are you for contemporary? But as you said, the most important is that six principles. If they are, people or an instructor abides by them. So that's just
To me. And I also think that, you know, I think that if somebody is going to a class that is called Pilates and they enjoy it and it benefits them, then great. I don't think that, you know, I'm not a purist, I think is what I'm trying to say. I think that, you know, we should have that freedom. I think, yeah, as long as those principles are there and it's benefiting the person and they're enjoying it, then great. Because at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to want to go, and you're not going to do it, and you're not going to get the benefits. So that's my view.
No, thank you. I have to say that Pilates is quite hard. You know, for some people think, oh, you know, it's just, you know, you move slowly, you're controlled, but I've tried it many times, and every time I did it, it's extremely hard. Well, we'll go down. We'll speak more about that later. But yeah, no, I do find it quite hard, especially core. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. So I was going to ask you. You know, when I started going to some, I believe gyms and Pilates, or just normal studios where they offer a range of classes, and I would see mat Pilates and I would see Reformer Pilates, and I think that was in my gym before, and at that time I wasn't really aware the difference between them. I was like, mat is mat. You know, obviously mat is just logical. You just lie on the mat. Reformer is a machine. What's the difference between mat and Reformer Pilates, and how might someone decide which is right for them?
So I am going to assume that the listener knows what a reformer is in terms of they've seen one. If they haven't, it might sound strange what I'm about to explain, but it'd be good if they kind of look one up so they can see it visually, because it can sound quite strange when I explain it. So it basically looks like a bed. It consists of a carriage which moves upwards and downwards, and it's attached to the frame through springs. Often the springs are different colours, which denotes the amount of tension on the spring. Sometimes on a classical reformer, you have the same color spring and it's the same amount of tension. It depends on the reformer. You have straps as well, or cables which have loops attached. And the reformer creates resistance for us, so via the springs. So it's like a nice way to build on the strength that you've gained through mat Pilates. This is why it's quite nice to start with mat, in my view. Not essential by any means, but it's quite nice to start with mats, because they're on the mat, it's just your body. You're not having to think about anything else, you know, you're not got the machine to focus on. And that's where you're really gonna learn that mind-body connection and build that awareness. And then moving on to the reformer, you've got the springs to work with, which are gonna aid in building even more strength, because you've got to move the carriage against that load of the spring. However, certain exercises will feel easier on a reformer, just because you've got the support of the machine. So it depends on how we use the reformer. The springs can be played around with to create heavy resistance, or very light resistance. Heavy resistance on an exercise means that we're working on strength, more strength and power. So more of those bigger muscles that produce movement or bigger movement. Whereas lighter springs, we're focusing on control and precision and stability as well, because you're having to really, really focus in and find those deep muscles that support your joints. So yeah, that's the main difference. Yeah, you've got classical reformer exercises as well, and you've got contemporary reformer exercises. The same way you do with the mat, you have classical mat exercises and contemporary mat.
Mm-hmm. And when Joseph Pilates, when he invented his method, was it initially on mat, or did he as well develop that carriage, that machine? Was it him or?
So yes, he developed the reformer. So the reason that he developed the reformer was because he wanted to rehabilitate soldiers, World War I soldiers. So if you can imagine, these soldiers were in hospital beds, they couldn't stand. He wanted to create a form of exercise where you could lie down and not get up. And so he actually attached springs to their bed frame, metal bed frame, and then fashioned loops where you could, you know, put your limbs into. So you could put your hands in the loops, you've got the spring attached behind you on the bed frame, and literally strengthen that way, alongside, you know, core exercises that you could do lying down, and then you could attach your legs into the loops and exercise the hips and build core strength that way, glute strength. So that was how it first started, and then obviously it's come a long way from there. And you've got contemporary, you know, reformers that we use in studios for fitness, and then you've got your other type of reformer, your more classical reformer that would be more used in a rehab setting, how Joseph would have used them for the soldiers. And you've even got other, I call them reformers, but they're known as megaformers, and they are used in what's known as like a kind of variation of Pilates as a method. Is known as Le Gray, and it's a kind of, I don't want to speak too much about Le Gray because I'm not a Le Gray instructor. It's not my that's not my my forte, but From what I know of it, it's a more dynamic, more higher impact form of movement, which has similarities to Pilates, but really isn't Pilates.
I did.
It's like the principles aren't really there,
Just
from my
principle.
understanding.
Yeah, yes, I did actually. Yeah, I did the Legray, if I pronounce it correctly, method once, and I found it so fast paced, extremely. I found it really hard to do, and
It's tough.
it's really tough. And I
It has its
decided,
benefits, like, don't
yeah,
get me wrong,
oh yeah,
but to me it's not Pilates because the principles aren't there. So, but I don't think, to be honest, I don't think Le Gray even call themselves Pilates. It's Le Gray method.
yeah.
But I feel it's kind of inspired by Pilates, but not quite the same.
Yeah, because even the machine, the carriage itself is different. It's just wide and it has
Yes.
more things to it.
Yeah.
I remember when I did that class, I was so overwhelmed because I didn't know actually where to move, what to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe if I sticked with that, I could have mastered my skills. But yeah, it's just I think at that time I just needed something a bit more lower impact and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's great that you mentioned that. And how is Pilates different to other workouts?
I think I've kind of touched on this in the sense that the fact that, we're really kind of slowing down our movement, we're going within, we're connecting with the body, we're building our mind body connection. I think that is what kind of sets Pilates apart from other modalities. Because I think you mentioned something like HIIT earlier, high intensity interval training. You don't get that. You really don't. It's all about going as fast as you can and doing as many reps, and you're not focused on your breath. You're not focused on where is my body in space. You're not always so focused on your form or alignment. So I think that it's really the principles of Pilates what make it different, because you don't get those principles in other modalities. And I think that's why, for me, it's the principles that are the key, because that's what makes it Pilates, and that's what makes you get those benefits. That's what allows you to gain those benefits.
Yeah, no, it's true. I don't know if I have to mention this now, but I think somehow fitness industry, have maybe brainwashed us thinking that, oh, if you need to sweat, you need to work hard in order to get benefits from the workout. But I remember doing Reformer Pilates, like for example, like an intermediate or even to advanced level, the resistance you mentioned, if you use like a stronger resistance, it feels like a proper workout. I remember I was so like I from doing an I think an advanced level, because sometimes you have different. I don't know if you in your studio you have these levels, but this is from my memory when I did Pilates, and I felt like I all these big muscles were working after an advanced level of doing Reformer Pilates. And I don't think you need to sweat and drench in your sweat in order
No,
to get benefits. I
no,
don't know. I'm not an expert, but I would like to
no.
know your opinion.
So me myself personally, I don't really sweat very much when I exercise. The
Yeah.
only time I'll sweat is if I go for a run. I'm just not a very sweaty person. I just don't sweat that much. And when I do Pilates, I don't really sweat. So that doesn't mean that I'm not gaining the benefits or that I'm not working hard. So the level at which you sweat it's not a good indicator. I think also we sometimes base it on how out of breath are you. I mean, if you want to train your cardiovascular endurance, that would be a good indicator. But with Pilates, that's not really our focus. The best indicator when you're practicing Pilates, the best indicator that you are working optimally is how much control are you utilizing. So that is why when I'm teaching an exercise and I can see somebody doing something with absolutely perfect control and they're breathing and their joints are aligned just as I would like them to be, I know that person needs to work harder, like needs more challenge, because they seem to be pretty okay with what they're doing. And then the reverse of that, if I've given an exercise to someone and I can see they're really, really struggling, and I'm thinking, do you know what? This is looking like a real challenge. Maybe I can suggest a regression for them or a modification for them, because maybe we've got another minute to go, for example, and maybe they're not quite going to get there because this level is really, really quite challenging for them. So you will feel it, you will feel it when you're in your class or doing your session. You will be able to feel how hard you're working. I think you mentioned earlier how hard it actually is, although it doesn't look it. I think often when you watch Pilates, when you see someone doing Pilates, it can just look like quite chilled and stretchy, and this is why it can be quite deceiving. Appearances can be quite deceiving. Actually, you find that because we're working on those deep muscles, there's a lot of work going on internally that you can't see, so it can be quite surprising when you actually practice how hard you're really working.
Yeah, especially I think core as well. There are some core exercises I remember, not glute. Hold on, yeah, I remember that was really, really hard as well. I was also wondering, Jen, what are some of your biggest pet peeves within the Pilates industry?
A lot of pet peeves. I think
Go
that
on.
I think that the thing that can be a little frustrating about Pilates is, well, firstly, it's become very trendy. Now that's great. It's great. Especially from an instructor point of view, it's great to have more people being interested in it and wanting to do it and wanting to gain the benefits. But I think what comes with this kind of aesthetic, trendy vision of Pilates is it's kind of made Pilates feel quite, I would say, snobby. It's given this impression of Pilates as being something that's quite snobby and quite exclusive. And I feel that's just a bit of a shame, because for me, I think Pilates is something that everyone should be doing because there are so many benefits to be had. And absolutely everyone can benefit. And I think that the image that we see of Pilates most often on social media is we see instructors or very, very fit individuals showcasing these beautiful movements which look amazing and yeah, very visually pleasing. But the problem with that is, because we only really see that, someone who's not at that level, doesn't have that level of fitness, it then can possibly feel quite, well, this isn't for me. This isn't something. They can feel quite, daunted by the idea of going to a class and feel worried that, I won't be able to keep up. I can't do that. I won't be able to do that. And that's a real shame, because I think that Pilates actually benefits, the people that Pilates benefits the most are the ones who are maybe a little bit stiff or weak or maybe recovering from an injury or surgery. That is where you're going to feel the most impacts from practicing Pilates. So it's a shame that your perception of it might put people off, but then I also I understand in a way why it's like that. I think it goes back to a little bit of when you watch Pilates, unless somebody's doing something really quite dynamic and impressive on a reformer, for instance, it can look like you're not doing anything because the movements are smaller and more precise. So it's maybe a bit more boring to look at an exercise like that rather than a really amazing looking one that's more dynamic and more advanced. So I get it in one sense, but it is also kind of frustrating because I get a lot of people who really would love to do Pilates, but they're almost like a bit scared to try because they feel intimidated that they might not be able to do everything, and that's not what Pilates is about. It doesn't matter, what you can't do. A good instructor, a good teacher is going to meet you where you're at, and be able to create, they're going to find ways of working with your body.
And yeah, thank you for sharing that. And this is relevant for the Pilates instructor who just, might look physically fit. As you said, they move with pose. That's why some people might feel intimidated, right, to join, because that's just not for me, for example. Whereas if you see a teacher who is how shall I say it? It may be in a larger body, right? Let's put it this way. But they know how to get a person from point A to point B, let's say. And the reason I'm saying that, because I had quite bad experience with personal trainers. And the majority of them who I had problems with were very fit, looked just perfect. But maybe I don't know, it's just their style of training did not work for me. But in my mind, when you see them, you will think, oh wow, they look just, their bodies look perfect and fit. Maybe social media is very like curated and all of that. But when they train you, I didn't get the results I actually felt worse. And again, this is not this is just not an offense to anyone, but this is just my personal experience. Is this something you're referring to? It doesn't really matter how the instructor looks like, right? It's just more important the knowledge.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I think for me as well is how much they care about you.
Yeah.
Because they're there for you at the end of the day. I mean, I think, there are really good instructors that are maybe not so experienced, but they care about their clients and they want to learn and they want to. We've all got to start somewhere, right? And I think that sometimes some of the best instructors are those that, are maybe newer and, they're coming into it really eager and ready to learn and gain experience. And yeah, of course, it does not matter what your instructor looks like. I think, often, people will base their idea of what they want to look like on the instructor that they go for, if that makes sense. And, even that in itself is flawed because we're all different. And just because your Pilates instructor looks a certain way, it doesn't mean that you're going to look like that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not, for me, Pilates is not about what it makes you look like. I think, look, we all want to look good. Let's not pretend we don't. And there's nothing wrong with having aesthetic goals linked to Pilates, but I think that when you base everything on that, I think it's a flawed way of approaching your Pilates practice, because you really may not get the results that you may not end up looking like your instructor or somebody you've seen on Instagram doing Pilates, because you're you and you have your own unique body type. it's more about how Pilates makes you feel more than anything else. Um, that is what it's about to me. And yeah, I think more representation. I think it is getting better, but I do slowly, but I do think the more we see different body types and people with different abilities doing Pilates, the better, because it's just going to bring more people in and make more people feel welcome and feel like, yeah, I can do this. This space is for me. Like, not feel excluded. I don't like that whole exclusivity feel that or impression that Pilates often gives.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. If someone has a, not probably the fittest body, doesn't mean that they're not strong, or yeah, it just doesn't mean this way. So I think it's good to have this open mind and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and yeah, it's interesting. Also, you mentioned social media, which probably doesn't help in this regard. I actually was wondering whilst you was talking, in terms of in order to become a Pilates instructor, so obviously you need to have knowledge, you need to qualify, right, to teach the class. And then how many hours of practice sessions do you need to have in order to be able to teach it?
There's not like
Oh no.
a set amount.
I see.
Depends on who you train with. It's not Pilates isn't like a regulated industry, so there's not like a one set number that everybody has to have. Yeah, so literally anyone can become a Pilates instructor. But this is why, it's good to sort of do your research, find a teacher that number one, like you feel cares about you, but also, knows their stuff and has experience. I mean, again, I don't want to discredit newer teachers or that are less experienced. I mean, everybody has to start somewhere. But yeah, I think, you'll know when you meet an instructor who's passionate versus one that, isn't. There
Yeah.
aren't many that aren't, to be honest, because, it's the type of thing where it's the type of job that you have to be passionate about it to be successful at it. You're not going to get very far if you're not. So, but yeah, I think find an instructor that resonates with you, you like their teaching style, you feel that they care about you. Yeah.
No, that's so true. Even from my consumer perspective, not consumer, customer perspective, this is how I would choose a person who I would like to work with. And the first thing, as you mentioned, if I feel someone cares about me, if someone really wants to help to reach my goals, that's a big win for me. And they know how because they have knowledge, right? Yeah, that's so important to find that instructor with whom you can click and work together, right? Yeah, that's so true. I was wondering, what's your favorite exercise in Pilates? Maybe with your clients or with
It's
yourself?
so hard to choose one exercise. There's so many I like. Do you know what I do like to teach is anything spinal extension based. So just lengthening the spine, extending the spine, because a lot of us spend an awful lot of time slouched over. A lot of us sit far too much more than we should. And you really, really feel the benefit of that quite quickly. It feels good as well. It feels good when you do it, after you do it. So anything spinal extension based, I would say, it's probably my favorite to teach and to do as well, because I need to do it as well.
Yeah, it's so beneficial, especially as you said, because we're all quite sedentary these days. And it's probably have a very good effect on your back. Is it back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like
Posture.
our posture, most of us is not always optimal, because we spend too much time in one position, and that usually tends to be sitting,
Yeah.
slouching forwards, and a lot of time spent in one position and not moving out of that position can lead to issues or pain later down the line. Yeah, so it's about moving in the opposite. If you're spending a lot of time sat in forward flexion, bending the spine forward, you need to be making sure that you're regularly also moving the spine in the other direction, so that you maintain that level of mobility for your back, and that your other joints like your hips and shoulders can all work properly as well.
That's very good to know. It's very good to know. And I think on this note, we are going to conclude our wonderful conversation. And
I can't believe I've
before,
spoken about
but
Pilates for 1 hour.
yes, such a an interesting topic, and
There's
I'm sure.
definitely a lot to talk about. There's a lot that can be said.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm sure we can do another episode if you want to. Maybe we can, choose another areas of Pilates. Well, you're more than welcome to suggest your topics, and
Yeah,
we
I
can
mean,
unpack.
if people want to hear, then I'm happy to share.
No, I think it was such a good conversation today because I think prior to recording, we did have a chat with you that a lot of people, as you said, come to Pilates. They don't know they are like why do they doing that. Just they saw
Yeah,
it's quite trendy on on
yeah,
social media. People post
yeah,
their workouts from the gym, but as you said, it's people just don't know why they come to Pilates. That's why it's just for our listeners. We Jennifer and I, we decided to do this episode just to unpack that, and that's why this invited. I will call it Queen of Pilates on my show, so she could
I don't know about that, but
uh, expert. I know you don't like this word. I remember you told me that, but someone who knows Pilates, teaches. Yeah.
I need to. Yeah, I guess I need to accept that word more. I think it's just the imposter syndrome in me. It's like not sure about that word, but at the same time, I have been doing it a long time now, and yeah, I've built up a lot of experience in that time. So yeah, but I think the thing about Pilates is even I could generalize the fitness industry. There's always something to learn. Nobody knows it all, and this is why I love going to other instructors' classes, because I always pick up things from other instructors that I think, oh, that's nice. I like the way she cued that exercise, or I really like the music that she used, or I love the way that she brought that stretch in after that exercise. It's so good to learn from other people as well.
Well, it's great that you have this growth mindset, just open to new ideas, and you can, because we all can learn from each other.
Yeah.
Uh, that's amazing. As you said as well, the Pilates fitness industry is quite an evolving space. I think there are so many things that are changing all the time. And it's great that you use all, as you said, you attend in other people's classes, and that's great. Before we wrap up, how can our listeners connect with you or find out more about your Pilates classes?
So I have a website, reformerpilates.co.uk. So you can find out more about my classes on there, or book in for classes. I'm based in Cheshunt in Hertfordshire. I also am on Facebook and Instagram. It's Renew Reformer Pilates. I'm quite active on there, so you'll definitely find me on there. Yeah.
Perfect. I will leave all the links in the show notes, so you can either connect or contact Jennifer. Thank you very much for being on my show, Jen. It's been an absolute
Thank you
pleasure.
so much for inviting me. It's so nice because obviously it's nice because I've worked with you, you know, as a client. So yeah, it's nice to have someone that to talk to someone who's actually experienced my teaching, etc. So yeah, no, thank you. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you.